Hello, I'm Dr. Dana, and this is a quick tutorial on installing Python tools in Visual Studio and setting up your initial Pygame environment. So let's start by making sure that our Visual Studio Enterprise copy has the Python tools installed already. So first you're going to want to make sure and go to your Visual Studio installer if you're not certain or if you know you didn't install the Python tools. Select the correct version of Visual Studio that you want to install the Python tools into, then select the More button, and then select Modify. Now once this pops up, you'll have all of the components and modules and elements that you may or may not have installed. Make sure that you find the Python development and check that box. Mine's already installed, so I won't have to actually make any modifications. But if yours isn't, check that box and then click Modify. It's going to take a little bit of time if you have to modify. It could take anything from a couple of minutes to up to, maybe even an hour if your internet connection is slow or something like that. But go ahead and start that process. Once you've installed your Python tools, go ahead and open up Visual Studio. And this will give you the option to create a new project. So click on Create New Project. After your first project, you'll probably see over here on the left-hand side a Python application template, which you can then just quickly select. But if this is your first time creating a Python project, you'll want to check here in the drop-down menu for the Python language. Then this is going to come up with a bunch of example projects that you can start with. Generally, if this is your first time working in Python, you're just going to pick the simple Python application for a command line app. Go ahead and click Next. Give it a name. Put it in a particular location. I'm just going to allow the default for now, and then create your project. Now this is going to open up a general Python application window. First thing that we want to check for is to make sure that the correct Python environment is installed. Now, mine is Python 3.7 32-bit. This may not be the default environment that Visual Studio brings up for you. If any other environment is there, or if you don't want to use the 32-bit, you want to use a 64-bit because you are working on a 64-bit machine, then you'll want to change that. I'm on a 64-bit machine, so I'm going to attempt to change this. So first thing you want to do is go to Python Environments, right-click on that, and then select Add Environment. Now this is going to give you the opportunity to create a new virtual environment or to add an existing environment. In this case, I have Conda environments installed and other new Python installations if you want to install a different version of Python. I'm fine with Python 3.7. I just want the 64-bit environment. So I'm going to actually go first to check my existing environments to see if there already is a 64-bit environment installed. In this case, I actually do already have a Python 3.7 64-bit environment, so I would just add that after I select that, and that is going to then select that environment for this entire project. If you do not find an environment that you want to use, then you can create your own additional environments or add new existing environments using Python installation. So here we can go down to the Python installation and select several of the other default versions. If you want to create an environment just for this project, virtual environments are really handy to prevent modification to all versions of Python in your computer. One of the benefits of virtual environments is that it can isolate the packages, libraries, tools, and resources that you use into just a single virtual environment instead of having all of your Python installations use all of the modules that you need for all of your Python applications. So this is really nice to be able to reduce the amount of code or the number of modules that are being built into the back end of your Python applications. Generally, don't worry too much about this, but if you want to do that, that is an option there. I'm just going to choose the existing environment that I want, which is the 3.7 64-bit. I'm going to add that. You'll see over here now the Python environment has changed. The default environment will be highlighted in bold if multiple environments are listed so that you can tell the difference. Once you have the correct Python environment installed, then we want to make sure that we have all of the correct modules installed in that environment. So the first thing we're going to do is go down in the Solutions Explorer window down to the bottom, pick the left tab, which is Python Environments. Then select the Python environment that you are using. You can check here in this drop-down box in the middle which one you're currently using, just to make sure that they match. And we're using the Python 3.7 64-bit. Now, one of the nice things, if you've selected one of these default environments, we can actually make this the new default environment for all new projects. So pick the environment that you're likely to want to use for all environments, and then we'll only have to go through this setup once. So I'm going to go ahead and select this as my default environment. Then I want to make sure that I have all of the correct modules installed. So click on the Overview button and click on Packages. If there's multiple entries here for packages, I usually start and stick with Pypal. That's Pypl. That's how that's pronounced, as Pypal. Then it's going to list all the possible packages that you could install. So we want to install Pygame first. So type into that search bar Pygame, and then usually you can just select this first entry, pip install Pygame, and everything should be fine. However, when there are multiple versions of Pygame and multiple other things that are called Pygame, then sometimes this could install the wrong thing, and if that's the case, click on the correct one that you want to install. In this case, install Pygame 2.0.1. But I'm just going to pick the first one and hope that everything goes okay. You'll see down here in the left-hand window here, the output says installing Pygame. It's then going to show me all of the process. This takes a couple of minutes sometimes, depending upon the size of the module. In this case here, it has now successfully installed Pygame. That's what we're looking for. So you want to make sure that it actually installed Pygame, and you want to make sure that that was actually successful. If this for some reason is unsuccessful, look through these error messages here and see if there's something else that you need to do or some dependency that you might need to install, and try and get that to work. But generally, on a fresh install of Python, this should work. So now we have Pygame installed. Right, so if we click, I'm going to click on another environment and then click back on this one. So what we should see when we get to these packages is when we select that packages Pypal, it should list the packages we already have that match that search. So in this case, here's all the packages that were already installed. Some of them need to be updated, but I don't care about them for now. All right, so let's go back into our Python application now and make sure that the Pygame has actually been installed and is now usable. So first thing is, if we check back to our Solution Explorer, we know that our sort of quote-unquote main file is going to be this one here, highlighted in bold. This is the one we have open over here on the side. So first thing, let's just run a simple command to make sure that it's actually running the correct file, just to be 100% certain. So I usually just, print 4 or something like that. Start that just like you would any other language in Visual Studio. It prints 4, press any key to continue, good. Okay, so Python is up, it's running, it works, it executes. So now let's check to make sure that Pygame was installed. So the first thing we want to do is import Pygame. So hopefully, all right, you can see here that had a red line under it, red squiggly line under it for a moment, but now that red squiggly line is gone. So hopefully that means that Pygame was correctly imported and will correctly work. Of course, because this is Python, we don't necessarily know that until we literally run the code. So let's go ahead and run the code and see what happens. Now you'll notice here, Pygame 2.0.1, that is a confirmation that Pygame was correctly installed and we can now use it. So now we can build an actual Python game using Pygame in our Visual Studio. And that's pretty much it. So now you're good to go. Start building your game. Good luck. Have fun.